Harry's wife. No show in Idaho or Colorado. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Many of you will be aware of the murders that took place just recently at the University of Idaho. Colonel Kedrick Wills, director of the Idaho State Police in the small northern Idaho city of Moscow, had a simple message, as reported in the Guardian newspaper. "We know that people want answers. We want answers too," he said at a recent press conference. A manhunt has now been underway for more than a week in this remote college town, where a still unidentified suspect stabbed 4 University of Idaho students to death in the early morning hours of the 13th of November. The victims of the quadruple homicide, Ethan Chapin, 20, Kaylee Conclaves, 21, Zana Knodel, 20, and Madison Meghan, 21, were killed as they slept in an off-campus house on King Road, located near the university's sorority and fraternity houses. A motive and the identity of who did the appalling crime remain unknown. When Wills made his appeal before the television cameras, he was not just speaking for the traumatized university community or the terrified college town that surrounds it. He was speaking for his state and the wider American public, which has watched in horror as more grim details of the gruesome slayings have come to light, except for the most crucial ones of all: why this happened and who did it. There are few clues. In the hours before their murder, Meghan and Goncalves were at a downtown Moscow bar called the Corner Club between 10 p.m. and 1:30 a.m., then visited a late-night food truck. Video of the 2 close friends who attended high school together and both worked at a local Greek restaurant shows them ordering pasta with no signs of apparent distress. At approximately 1:40 a.m., they received a ride home from a private party, a person detectives have investigated and currently do not suspect had anything to do with the pair's homicide. During the same time frame, Chapin and Knodel were at a party at Sigma Chi, a fraternity house on the University of Idaho campus, until approximately 1:45 a.m., when they returned to the King Road house. Knodel, Meghan, and Goncalves were roommates. Chapin did not live at the house, but appeared to be staying for the night. All of the victims were members of the University of Idaho sorority or fraternity. Their bodies were found on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the house. They got stabbed. We got the call. I don't want people to make assumptions about our kids. It wasn't drugs, and it was definitely not some passion thing between these kids. Someone entered the house, Stacy Chapin told the Idaho Statesman 4 days after her son's body was discovered. A tragic event, 4 young people having their lives taken, and of course, a growing memorial has taken root in front of the campus entrance sign for the University of Idaho with candles, stuffed animals, flowers, notes, etc. 4 young people on the cusp of exploring life. Where was Harry's wife? 4 people have lost their lives. She went to university, or apparently so, and she is an advocate for young people, or claims to be, so why hasn't she turned up in Idaho? Of course, also just recently, the suspect in a shooting at a Colorado LGBTQ nightclub has been identified as Anderson Lee Aldrich, who police say walked into Club Q in Colorado Springs and immediately opened fire, killing 5 people and injuring at least 19 others. Aldrich, aged 22, faces 5 counts of first-degree murder and 5 counts of a bias-motivated crime causing bodily injury in connection to the shooting, according to an online docket in the El Paso County Courts. The suspect was taken into police custody and was being treated at a hospital, police said, adding officers did not shoot at him. Aldrich remained hospitalized as of late Monday morning, when Colorado Springs Police Chief Adrian Vasquez said the suspect had not made any statements to police, despite their attempts to interview him for the investigation. Police received several 911 calls about the shooting beginning at 11:56 p.m. local time, according to police. Officers were dispatched at 11:57, and an officer arrived at Club Q at midnight, The suspect was detained at 12:02 a.m., police said. Police said 2 firearms were recovered at the scene, including a long rifle Vasquez described in an interview with CNN as an AR-style weapon. The suspect also possessed a handgun. He told CNN on Monday that the long rifle was the main weapon used in the shooting. A memorial display has already been set up to remember the 5 victims of the Club Q shooting. Pictures of them demonstrate that they are all, from what I can see, young people of different ethnicities, surrounded by white roses and flowers placed before them, along with various flags, etc., and motifs appertaining to the LGBTQ movement. Again, where was Harry's wife? Are these not people that she claims to represent and support and advocate for? She turned up at Uvalde for a photo shoot and a video opportunity, but where is she from? Where is she in relation to Idaho or Colorado and previously Buffalo? As I've explained before, of course, given the number of mass shootings, mass stabbings that take place in the United States, she would actually be turning up at memorials each and every day. But the point is that she makes a rod for her own back, and this is once again demonstrative of the mid-range nature of her narcissism. It determined that it would be appropriate to turn up at Uvalde, notwithstanding the fact that everybody else regarded as completely inappropriate, because it was too soon, people were grieving, that it was crass, ghoulish behaviour. Her narcissism dictated, you must go, and do so under the auspices of showing your support, and that you are demonstrating your huge compassion for those affected by this tragedy. Of course, the real reason, the genuine reason she was attending, was to assert control over an audience by appearing to be caring and compassionate, to draw fuel from people's responses, to obtain the character traits of those victims to utilise as their own, and of course the residual benefits, the facade of caring, which could then be used to triangulate with other people, and of course the possibility of footage, which could be monetised. Virtually all individuals saw through this as a crass, distasteful and ghoulish opportunist at work. Yet, with her narcissism dictating that she attends there, also whizzing across on a private jet, even though she can't be bothered to go and see her ill father, it didn't dictate for her to go to Buffalo, where a number of black people were massacred, or the tragedies as I've just described at Idaho and Colorado. Why not? Quite simply, someone who apparently overflows with compassion evidently does not. Her narcissism dictates it's not appropriate. Why? It determines that it would be too difficult in terms of gaining the prime aims, and therefore does not dictate her to go in that direction. Indeed, those events may not have even come up on her radar for consideration, and therefore her narcissism does not look to utilise them for the benefit of the prime aims. It may well be that her narcissism is directing her to deal with other matters. For instance, very important messages thanking Elton John, and perhaps considering her next activity with regard to some kind of fashion announcement. Her narcissism doesn't even direct her to put out some message of commiseration or condolence to those involved in the tragedy. There's no statement on Archwell about it. And this is demonstrative of the fact that her supposed compassion isn't that at all. It's selective. Because it's selective based upon what her narcissism dictates as the appropriate thing to do. It's selective in terms of what the narcissism dictates in terms of achieving the prime aims. And the problem that Harry's wife has is this, that because so many people dislike her because of her conduct, nothing to do with her skin colour, that she will be criticised for picking and choosing her tragedies. Other people that would be well liked would not be. And also, for instance, Matthew McConaughey, who was involved in commenting about Uvalde because he was from there and therefore has a direct link, that makes sense for him to be involved to the limited extent that he was with regard to Uvalde. There's a clear and obvious link. He doesn't go racing around commenting about other tragedies because whilst, of course, he would recognise that those are tragedies, he doesn't involve himself because he has no actual link. Whereas with Harry's wife, At that point, at that particular juncture, her narcissism dictated, Uvalde, opportunity, go for it. Her narcissism doesn't think, do we actually have a connection here? How about how this will look? Might we be criticised for it? Also, if we go to this one, would we not be expected to go to other tragedies also? The fact is, because she has no direct connection other than saying, I'm a mom too, to Uvalde, it means that people would quite legitimately say, well, you attended there on the most spurious of reasons, so you claim, yes, I'm a mother, therefore I go there. Well, you claim that you're biracial, black people were massacred at Buffalo, so you should be going there. And also, didn't you go to university, and you advocate for young people, therefore why didn't you go to Idaho? And that you stand up for minorities. So why didn't you go to the LGBTQ tragedy that took place in Colorado? We know she doesn't because there is no actual emotional empathy. We know she doesn't because she's devoid of compassion. She just thinks that she has it. We know that she doesn't because her narcissism did not dictate that that was worth attending, and it made the mistake, with the collateral consequences I described, of directing her to turn up Uvalde. Each and every tragedy that occurs, where there is silence on her part, is demonstrative of the absence of emotional empathy. Whilst there might be those saying, well, how can she be expected to comment or attend when there are so many of these tragedies going on? The point is, she managed it for Uvalde when she had no connection with them, or the most tenuous of ones. Therefore, what's stopping her with regard to the others? The fact is, she only attended because her narcissism dictated that it was appropriate. Nothing to do with emotional empathy or compassion, and similarly, with Idaho, Buffalo, and Colorado, her narcissism dictated it was not worth attending. Therefore, she did not. This is useful for you to understand why a narcissist would attend certain tragedies and not others, and make a play of apparent compassion for those affected by the tragedy. Many people, of course, mistakenly think this is a demonstration of empathy, when they don't realise it's a mid-range narcissist exhibiting cognitive empathy. And Harry's wife provides you with a useful opportunity in that regard to understand more about that. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.